most men I know really want to have sex, right? So this is the key that unlocks the door, and yet it's too scary to get there.
Did you push record?
Thank you so much for tuning into Second Act TV. Today I am so excited to introduce you to two new content experts to Second Act, Griffeth and Emily Liu. They are an intimacy and sex coaching team, and they help couples like us over 40, 50 and beyond really achieve what is truly important: intimate connections and great sex. So Jim, Emily, thank you so much for joining us today.
We're delighted to be here.
Thank you, Silke.
Well, I'm excited for our conversation. I should also mention, Emily, you are an author. You've authored 2 relationship books, one of which I have right here, Climax: Why Great Leaders Need Love Affairs. And that's written very, I love it, fable style, and really helps us understand how we get to the root cause of relationship issues, utilizing what you, of course, employ in your coaching practice, the IFS approach system method, the internal family systems model. And that's what I want to focus on in this segment first. Before we really get into the how-to, I think, having read all this, I think it's so important for people to understand what this is and why it's important for them to do this kind of process. Yeah. So let me throw it over to you. What is IFS?
Internal Family Systems, IFS for short, was developed by a brilliant psychologist over 30 years ago, Dr. Richard Schwartz. The essence of the model is about understanding that within each and every one of us, there is a higher self and parts. Higher self, we've all been in touch with it at some point in our lives. For example, when we just feel so good about who we are and we're on fire and we show up so kindly and with compassion and confidence and curiosity during, let's say, the first date of somebody that you're really attracted to. So you're putting on your best self and you're really curious and you're just playful and present. So that's that higher self.
And some people would think of this as their spirit or their Buddha nature, or there's any number of terms for the higher self that are in our common vocabulary today.
Okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense. I understand the concept of higher self. What confused me, and I want to make sure our viewers understand. Give me an example. What are parts? How does that fit into the framework?
Yeah. So in terms of intimacy, there's a part of us that is the part that gives us the courage to be vulnerable. But oftentimes the fear comes into play. Oh no, I can't reveal all of that about myself. He's gonna think I'm not good enough. So those voices that are in your head, you feel like there's this committee inside of your head. There's a part of you that's like, oh yeah, we should be vulnerable. And then there's another part of you that's like, no, we can't. He's going to reject you. If he learns this about you, that you did this in your last relationship, no. So the inner chatter, feelings, thoughts, emotions, behaviors, those are all parts. You just, and there are days when you're just like, can you just shut up there? It's basically, those are your parts.
They have medication for that.
There's what?
There's medication for that.
Yeah. Okay, we don't want to pathologize those parts. The great thing about the internal family systems model is that it doesn't diagnose anybody with depression or bipolar or sadness or anxiety. It's about, the sad part, it's in an extreme role. What happened? Or the angry part. Okay, instead of being angry when you are walking down a dark alley and there's somebody that's chasing after you, you have angry part needs to come out. But if you are angry when things are calm around you and your spouse or your employee is like, whoa, he just seems so angry. Anger is another part. So it's when parts go into extremes that gets us into trouble. So
Right.
like drinking.
Yeah. So things like drinking or overeating,
Shopping too much,
binge watching TV, watching too much porn, In relationships, inappropriate behavior, if you're out in a business setting and being too flirty, things like that are all parts of us that are expressing themselves. And sort of the telltale sign of that is the regret, the idea that after the fact, you said, "Oh, I wish I really hadn't said that," or "I wish I really hadn't done that," or I don't know how to stop doing that. Those kinds of things are real signs that parts have been activated that have taken over your sort of executive function from your higher self.
So with the model, then you identify a part, but kind of so you don't blame your whole self that way. I mean, is that kind of a benefit for
Exactly.
it?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's part of the magic, because you can separate yourself from the emotions and the agenda and the strategy that part is following. You can separate yourself as the higher self and look at that part objectively with compassion and really understand why that part is trying to behave the way it is, where that's coming from. That really just opens the door for understanding and further compassion. And in the IFS model, what we're able to do is provide a mechanism then to not only understand that part, but then to heal that part. And that's the really big insight here, the really big innovation that Dr. Schwartz developed.
And the thing is, when people say, "Oh, he's so narcissistic," or you want to point the finger at the other person, and he's so controlling. Those are all parts and extreme roles.
What?
and that person has to show up in those parts because of his childhood wounds that made him felt powerless, and he's like, "Oh no, I got to be controlling in this relationship. Oh, she just said that, and whoa, that just reminded me of how my mother used to punish me, and no, I'm going to get into controlling energy and control her." So it's all about the past showing up in the present.
And does that affect men and women differently when you're helping couples? Is there a difference?
Yeah, men, we're at a real disadvantage. We've never really been taught how to understand what's going on inside our heads in this kind of way. We don't have the vocabulary. We don't have the awareness of our own emotions and feelings. So being able to sort of recognize this in the moment is a muscle that never got exercised, if you will. And as we start to exercise that, it becomes stronger and stronger. And we can recognize the opportunities that, there are to sort of say, okay, let's step back from that active part and really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But because there is no internal sort of diagnostics, there's no vocabulary that we're raised with. We're taught that any kind of awareness of feelings or expression of feelings, and heaven forbid that we should actually cry, that's a sign of weakness. And this is a real issue for men, because the media and other sources have really sort of promulgated, or the media have propagated this idea that real men don't cry, that real men are stoic and don't express feelings. And there is a time to be stoic, but there's also a time to really be in touch with your feelings and understand what's going on inside you.
Because many boys were told when they cried on the soccer field, when they missed the ball, daddy or mommy came over and says, "Boys don't cry." So in that moment, it's like, oh, it is not safe to show my feelings. If that man has not done some inner work or self-awareness or self-help or anything, then he believes that it is weak to show emotions. So when a relationship happens, he still doesn't show his emotions. And the women are just craving emotional intimacy. Mm-hmm. And for women, most women, we need emotional intimacy before we share our bodies, to feel safe to share our bodies. We want to feel that closeness. And so women and men are not understanding how we are brought up makes us hold back. Now, not all women are vulnerable. Some women also hold back, and they are not in touch with their emotions either.
Sure.
It's nobody's fault. We were just never taught how to express ourselves.
Yeah, we've had other conversations about vulnerability, emotional intelligence, all that. The vulnerability is a touchy subject. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't believe that it's helpful. So it's
Right.
So
very interesting. Very
interesting.
interesting.
What do you mean by when they say it's not helpful, that it damages relationships and
No,
not?
that well, I'm not agreeing with it by any means, but it's the concept that women or some men believe that women don't want a vulnerable man. That's weakness. Vulnerability is equal to weakness. So this is all very interesting.
Well, yeah. The research has been done by Dr. Brene Brown, who had the top two TED Talks, one on shame and one on vulnerability. And her research has shown that vulnerability is the number one source of courage. So it's power.
Oh,
Vulnerability does not.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It's
It's
just
the
I'm just
demonstration of courage.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And the irony here is that because men have this sort of programming that vulnerability is somehow, dangerous or something that they're not familiar with or that they're not supposed to express, and most men I know really want to have sex, right? So this is the key that unlocks the door, and yet it's too scary to get there. So it's this sort of beautiful irony, unfortunately, that a lot of us suffer from, is that we have the key, we know what the key is, but just feels too uncomfortable to go
do we want to unlock it? Yeah, we're starting to come to the end of the segment. I want to make sure we get in anything else important about IFS. What I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that really this is a method of getting to the core of your vulnerability.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the power is that your higher self has the power to heal all of these child parts of you that have been wounded with messages that are holding you back from great intimacy and great sex. So when the higher self goes back and heals these inner child parts, this is when the bad extreme behaviors, thoughts, feelings can relax or transformed into something really positive altogether. And that's when you become the best version of you. Okay, I've released the wounds that mom did to me, and so now it's I get it. I have compassion for mom. I have compassion for myself, and I could share that story with my partner of what mom did, and etc. So that's where you get to share the tender parts of you from a place of strength, as opposed to no, I'm afraid to share this.
And we use this, we use this in our own relationship. So we're striving to sort of live this kind of relationship of radical honesty and vulnerability with each other. And it has very quickly built a very strong bond and connection for us. And, we are, sort of actively documenting our experiences so we can share them with our clients.
Yeah, and I want to share them. I want to hear more about that. I want to hold you for another segment where we get into the how to. I know that this has been primarily a bit of a theoretical discussion, but I think it's important to understand the basis of what your advice stems from. And I know that from a practical perspective, we have a cheat sheet that you're going to give us that people can log into and actually get started in this process, correct?
Yes. So in order for people to develop the deep connection and the great sex they ultimately want, it's important to understand what's going on inside of you so that you could speak for these tender parts of you. And that's what creates the intimacy. So this cheat sheet is going to help you to understand your part and how to get into the doorway of great and intimate conversations so that it leads to deeper connection and great sex. And they could go to the intimacyandgreatsex.com website to download that cheat sheet.
Terrific. Well, I will link to all of your information, obviously, to your book. And let's come back on another segment. Let's talk about how to have those difficult conversations that are in the way of finding that deep connection, intimacy, and great sex. So thank you very much. I'll see you on our next segment.
Thank you,
Great.
Silke.
If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too, and we'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.